The stars had always been Kira's home. She was born on a ship between worlds, raised in the gentle hum of engines and the soft glow of distant suns. Her mother, a Draconid diplomat named Scylla, had carried her across 3 star systems before Kira learned to walk. The universe was vast and beautiful, and Kira had never known fear until tonight. The attack came without warning. One moment, Kira was curled in her sleeping pod, dreaming of the blue planet they were passing. The next moment, alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed. The walls shook with explosions. Kira stumbled out of her pod, her small wings flapping uselessly as she tried to keep her balance. She was only 6 cycles old, barely the size of an Earth cat, with scales the color of a twilight sky. Her golden eyes were wide with terror as she called out for her mother. "Kira!" Scylla appeared from the smoke, her own scales cracked and bleeding. Behind her, through the viewport, Kira could see the enemy ships. Valdorid raiders. Everyone in the galaxy knew what they were. Slavers, killers, monsters who took children and sold them to the highest bidder. Scylla grabbed Kira and ran through the burning corridors. Other Draconids lay on the floor, not moving. Kira didn't understand death yet, but she understood that something terrible was happening. She buried her face in her mother's neck and held on tight. They reached the escape pod bay. Only one pod remained. It was small, meant for a single passenger. Scylla's hands shook as she opened the door. "No," Kira whimpered. "Mother, come with me." Scylla's eyes were filled with tears that turned to steam on her hot scales. "I cannot, little one. The pod is too small. But you must live. You must survive. I don't want to go alone." Scylla pressed her forehead against Kira's, a gesture of deep love among their people. "You are never alone. I am always with you, in your hearts, in your fire. Now listen to me, Kira. The blue planet below is called Earth. Humans live there. They are a young species, strange and unpredictable. Some will fear you. Some may try to hurt you. But my studies tell me that some of them have great kindness in their souls. Find those humans, Kira. Find help. Survive." Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and died. "I love you, Mother," Kira whispered. "And I love you, my little star." Scylla placed Kira inside the pod and sealed the door. Through the small window, Kira watched her mother's face as she pressed the launch button. The pod shot away from the ship. Kira pressed her claws against the glass, watching as her home grew smaller and smaller. Then, in a flash of orange and white, the ship exploded. Debris scattered across the black sky like broken dreams. Kira screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw, until no sound came out, until she had nothing left. Her mother was gone. Her people were gone. Everything she had ever known was floating in pieces among the stars. The pod began to shake as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Fire licked at the windows. The heat shields groaned and cracked. Kira curled into a ball, her wings wrapped around her body, her eyes squeezed shut. She didn't pray, because she didn't know who to pray to anymore. She just waited for it to end. The crash was violent. The pod tore through trees and dirt, spinning and rolling until it finally came to rest against a cluster of frozen pines. The impact threw Kira against the walls. She felt her left foreleg snap. She felt her scales crack and split. She felt pain like she had never known. When the spinning stopped, Kira lay still for a long time. She could hear the wind howling outside. She could feel cold seeping through the broken hull. Slowly, painfully, she crawled toward the emergency release. The door fell open, and Kira tumbled out into a world of white snow. She had read about it in her studies, but she had never seen it before. It was everywhere, covering the ground, the trees, the sky. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. And it was cold. So cold that Kira was a warm-blooded creature from a warm world. Her scales were meant for desert heat and volcanic vents, not this frozen wasteland. Within moments, she was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Steam rose from her body as her internal heat fought against the cold. She tried to stand, but her broken leg buckled beneath her. Violet blood dripped onto the white snow, marking her path as she began to crawl. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to move. If she stayed still, she would die. Through the trees, she saw lights. Small, yellow, warm lights. Buildings, homes, humans. Find help. Survive. Her mother's last words echoed in her mind, pushing her forward through the pain and the cold. Kira dragged herself through the snow, inch by inch, leaving a trail of blood behind her. Her vision blurred. Her body screamed for rest. But she kept moving. The forest seemed endless. Every tree looked the same. Every shadow held new fears. Kira had never felt so small, so alone, so afraid. She was a child from the stars, lost on a strange world, with no one to help her and no one to hold her. But still, she crawled. After what felt like hours, she reached the edge of the forest. Before her lay a small road, and beyond that, houses. Real houses with real lights and real warmth inside. Somewhere in those houses, there might be someone who would help her. Someone kind. Someone brave. Or there might be someone who would hurt her. Someone afraid. Someone cruel. Kira didn't know which she would find. She only knew that she had to try. Her mother had believed in the humans. Her mother had sent her here with hope in her heart. Kira would not let that hope die. She pulled herself onto the road and began the long, painful journey toward the first house. The snow was falling harder now, covering her tracks, erasing her path. Soon, no one would even know she had been in that forest. Soon, she might be just another piece of wreckage, frozen and forgotten. But not yet. Not while she still had breath in her lungs and fire in her soul. Kira reached the first house and looked up at the door. It was so tall, so big. She was so small. She raised her good claw and knocked. Danny Kowalski had not planned to save anyone that night. He had not planned to do anything except drink his coffee, watch the snow fall, and try not to think about the past. That was how most of his nights went. Quiet, empty, alone. He had been a soldier once, a combat medic who had served 2 tours in places he didn't like to talk about. He had saved lives there, dozens of them, pulling wounded men and women out of firefights and patching them up with nothing but gauze and prayer. He had been good at his job. The best, some said, but the war had taken pieces of him. It had taken his faith, his hope, his ability to sleep without nightmares. When he came home, he found that there was nothing left for him. His parents were dead. His wife had moved on. His friends didn't know how to talk to him anymore. So Danny had bought a cabin in the woods of northern Minnesota, far from anyone and anything. He had filled it with books and silence and darkness. He had stopped reaching out to the world, and the world had stopped reaching out to him. Until tonight. He had opened the door to grab a package from the delivery drone, and instead he had found a dying creature on his welcome mat, small and broken and covered in violet blood. Its scales were the color of a night sky, cracked and split in a dozen places. Its golden eyes were barely open, looking up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Danny didn't hesitate. He didn't think about what it was or where it came from. He just saw something that was hurt and needed help, and his old training kicked in. He carried the creature inside and laid it on the kitchen table under the bright overhead light. His hands moved with practiced ease as he assessed the damage. Broken foreleg, multiple lacerations across the torso, severe hypothermia, possible internal bleeding. Bad. Very bad. But not hopeless. Not yet. Okay, little guy, Danny said softly, more to himself than to the creature. Let's see what we can do. He worked through the night. He didn't have the right tools for this, obviously. He didn't even know what kind of creature this was or how its body worked. But the basics of medicine were universal. Stop the bleeding, stabilize the fracture, raise the body temperature, monitor for shock. He cleaned the wounds with saline solution and sealed the worst of them with surgical glue from his old field kit. He splinted the broken leg with popsicle sticks and medical tape, wrapping it carefully so the bones would stay aligned. He heated blankets in the dryer and wrapped the creature in them, creating a cocoon of warmth. But it wasn't enough. The creature's temperature kept dropping. Its breathing grew shallow. Its hearts, two of them from what Danny could tell, were beating too slow. Danny did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Then he did something more practical. He took off his shirt, unwrapped the creature from the blankets, and held it against his bare chest. Skin to skin, heart to hearts, sharing his own body heat with this small, broken stranger. Hours passed. The snow fell outside. The cabin was silent, except for the crackling of the fire and the soft rhythm of breathing. Danny held the creature close, feeling its tiny lungs expand and contract, feeling its heart slowly grow stronger. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, the creature opened its eyes. Danny looked down at the golden orbs staring up at him. They were clear now, focused, aware. The creature blinked once, twice, and then opened its mouth. "Thank you," it said in broken, accented English. "I am Kira." Danny stared at it. At her. She could talk. She could speak English. She was an alien, an actual alien from another world, lying in his arms and thanking him for saving her life. He should have been scared. He should have been shocked. But all Danny felt was a strange sense of calm. Like this was exactly where he was supposed to be. Like his whole life had been leading to this moment. "Hey, Kira," he said softly. "I'm Danny. You're safe now." Kira's eyes filled with tears. They were silver, like liquid starlight, and they rolled down her scaled cheeks in slow, silent streams. She pressed her face against Danny's chest and made a sound that needed no translation. A sob, a release. The sound of a child who had been strong for too long and finally found a place where she could be weak. Danny held her. He didn't know what else to do. He wasn't good with emotions, not anymore. The war had burned that out of him. But he remembered, somewhere deep inside, what it felt like to be held. What it felt like to be safe. "It's okay," he murmured. "I've got you. You're okay." They stayed like that for a long time. Kira cried herself to sleep in his arms, her small body finally relaxing, her breathing finally even. Danny watched her sleep, this strange little dragon from another world, and felt something stir in his chest. It was a feeling he barely recognized. A feeling he had thought was dead and buried. Hope. When the sun came up, Danny was still holding Kira. His arms were cramped, his back was sore, and he hadn't slept in over 24 hours. But he didn't move. He didn't want to wake her. He didn't want to break this fragile moment of peace. Kira woke slowly, blinking in the morning light. She looked up at Danny with her golden eyes, and for a moment she seemed confused, like she didn't remember where she was. Then her face cleared, and she smiled. It was the most beautiful thing Danny had ever seen. "You stayed," she said softly. "Yeah," Danny said. "I stayed. The others didn't. They were afraid. They hurt me. But you stayed." Danny felt a lump form in his throat. He thought about all the doors that had been closed in his own life. All the people who had turned away when he needed them. All the times he had felt alone and broken and unwanted. "I know what it's like," he said quietly. "To have no one. To feel like the whole world is against you. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even a little dragon from outer space." Kira laughed. It was a small sound, weak and tired, but it was real. "I'm not a dragon," she said. I am a draconid. We are very different, whatever you say, kid. Danny smiled. It felt strange on his face, like a muscle he hadn't used in too long. Now, are you hungry? Because I have no idea what you eat, but I'm pretty sure we can figure something out. Kira's eyes lit up. I eat meat. And fire. Do you have fire? Danny looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a real laugh, deep and warm and healing. Kid, he said, you came to the right place. The door opened, and Kira found herself looking up at an old woman with white hair and a wrinkled face. For one brief moment, hope flared in Kira's chest. The woman looked kind. She looked like someone who might help. Then the woman saw Kira's face, and everything changed. The scream that came from the old woman was loud enough to hurt Kira's ears. The woman stumbled backward, her hands flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. She grabbed a heavy pot from a table near the door and threw it at Kira with all her strength. Kira barely dodged the pot. It crashed against the porch railing, sending pieces of clay everywhere. The woman was still screaming, reaching for something on the wall. A phone. She was calling for help. But not help for Kira. Help against her. Monster. There's a monster on my porch. Send the police. Send everyone. Kira turned and fled. Her broken leg dragged behind her, sending waves of pain through her small body. She didn't understand. She hadn't done anything wrong. She had just asked for help. Why was the woman so afraid? The snow was falling heavier now, and Kira could barely see. But she could see another house, not far away. Lights glowed in the windows. Maybe the people there would be different. Maybe they would help her. She limped across the yard and up the steps of the second house. Through the window, she could see children inside. Two of them, a boy and a girl, playing with toys on the floor. Children were supposed to be kind. Children were supposed to be curious and brave. Kira pressed her face against the cold glass and tapped gently. The children looked up. Their eyes went wide, but they didn't scream. Instead, they laughed. Look at that, the boy said, pointing at Kira. It's like a lizard. Is it a toy? Maybe it's a robot, the girl said. Let's show Dad. They ran off, giggling, and Kira felt a small spark of hope. Maybe their father would understand. Maybe he would see that she was hurt and cold and needed help. The father appeared at the window. He was a big man with a thick beard and hard eyes. He looked at Kira for a long moment, his face showing no emotion. Then he reached up above the fireplace and took down a gun. Kira ran. The blast from the gun was deafening. Snow exploded behind her as she dove off the porch and rolled into the yard. Pain shot through her broken leg, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The man fired again and again, but Kira was small and fast, even injured. She disappeared into the shadows between houses. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her hearts pounded so hard, she thought they might burst. 2 houses. 2 doors. 2 rejections. One with fear, one with violence. Was this what humans were? Was this what her mother had sent her to find? No. Her mother had said some humans were kind. Some humans had good souls. Kira just had to find them. She found the 3rd house at the end of a long driveway. It was smaller than the others, with only one light on inside. Kira crawled up to the door and scratched at it gently. She was too weak to knock anymore. Her claws left small marks in the paint. The curtain moved. A man's face appeared in the window. He was middle-aged, with glasses and thin hair. He stared at Kira for a long time. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. Kira pressed her paw against the glass. Please, she whispered in her own language, knowing he couldn't understand. Please, help me. The man's face twisted with fear. He stepped back from the window. The curtain fell closed. A moment later, the light went out. Kira waited. She scratched at the door again, softly, hopefully. She whimpered and cried, making sounds that any creature, anywhere in the galaxy, would recognize as the sound of a frightened child. But no one came. After a long time, Kira turned away from the dark house. The cold had seeped deep into her bones now. She could barely feel her tail. Her wings, torn and useless, hung limp at her sides. Violet blood had frozen in streaks across her scales. She found a fourth house, but she could barely remember what happened there. A woman's face, twisted with disgust. A door slamming shut. Muffled shouting from inside. The word freak thrown at her like a stone. Kira didn't run this time. She didn't have the strength. She just turned and walked away, step by painful step, through the endless snow. She was going to die here. She understood that now. This world didn't want her. These people didn't care. She was a monster to them, a thing to be feared and hated and killed. It didn't matter that she was just a child. It didn't matter that she was hurt and alone and scared. All they could see were her scales, her wings, her golden eyes. All they could feel was fear. The fifth house appeared through the snow like a ghost. Kira could barely see it. Her vision had gone blurry, and her legs had stopped working properly. She crawled up the porch steps on her belly, leaving a trail of violet blood on the wood. She didn't have the strength to knock. She didn't have the strength to scratch. She just lay there on the welcome mat, her small body shaking with cold, her eyes slowly closing. The snow began to cover her, soft and wide like a blanket, like a shroud. It would be peaceful, she thought. At least it would be peaceful. She would fall asleep, and she would dream of her mother, and she would never wake up. I tried, Mother, she thought. I tried to find help. I tried to survive. But they don't want me here. The stars seemed very far away now. The cold had turned to warmth, which Kira knew was a bad sign. Her body was giving up. Her fire was going out. She thought of home. She thought of her mother's arms around her. She thought of the ship, flying through the stars, safe and warm and loved. I'm coming, Mother. Wait for me. The door opened. Light spilled out onto the porch, warm and golden and bright. A shape appeared in the doorway, tall and strange. A human. Another human who would scream or shoot or turn away. But this human did none of those things. This human knelt down in the snow, reached out with gentle hands, and lifted Kira into his arms. Jesus Christ, he said softly. You're freezing. Hold on, little one. I've got you. Kira couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She could only look up at the human's face through half-closed eyes. He had kind eyes. Sad eyes. Eyes that had seen too much pain and somehow still had room for more. He carried her inside. Into the warmth, into the light. The door closed behind them, shutting out the cold and the darkness and the cruel world outside. For the first time since the attack, Kira felt safe. Weeks passed in the little cabin in the woods. The snow kept falling, covering the world in white, hiding them from prying eyes. Danny hadn't told anyone about Kira. He didn't trust anyone enough. The world wasn't ready for an alien, and he wasn't ready to share her. She told him everything. About her world, Verith Prime, a planet of red deserts and volcanic mountains where the Draconids had lived for millions of years. About her people, ancient and wise, who traveled the stars seeking knowledge and friendship. About the attack that had killed her mother and destroyed her ship. Danny listened without interrupting. He learned that the Valdari were a race of slavers who captured children from other species and sold them as pets or servants or worse. He learned that Kira's mother, Sayla, had been a diplomat trying to build peace between worlds. He learned that the Draconids had been watching Earth for decades, studying humans, trying to decide if they were ready for contact. My mother believed in your kind, Kira said one evening, sitting by the fire. Her scales had healed beautifully, shifting from cracked twilight to a healthy deep blue that shimmered in the firelight. Her leg was still splinted, but she could hobble around the cabin now. She said humans were capable of great things. Great kindness. Great courage. But also great cruelty. Danny poked at the fire with a stick, watching the sparks fly up into the chimney. She wasn't wrong. We've done terrible things to each other. Wars. Slavery. Genocide. Sometimes I wonder if we deserve to survive at all. Kira tilted her head, studying him with her golden eyes. But you also save each other. You help strangers. You adopt children who are not your own. You run into burning buildings to rescue people you have never met. My mother said that was what made humans special. You have the capacity for evil, but you choose good. Some of us, Danny said quietly. Not enough of us. One is enough, Kira said. One kind human is enough to give hope. You are that human, Danny. You opened your door when everyone else closed theirs. You healed me when you could have let me die. You are proof that my mother was right. Danny didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to being seen as good. He had done things in the war that still haunted him. He had killed people, some who deserved it and some who probably didn't. He had come home broken and empty, convinced that whatever goodness he once had was gone forever. But Kira looked at him like he was a hero, like he mattered, like he had value beyond his usefulness. Thought it made him want to be better. The days fell into a comfortable routine. Danny would wake up early and make breakfast. Eggs and bacon for himself. Raw meat and a small fire in a metal bowl for Kira. She loved the fire, breathing it in like air, letting it warm her from the inside. After breakfast, Danny would change her bandages and check her healing. Then they would read together, or talk, or just sit in comfortable silence. Danny had stopped drinking. He hadn't made a conscious decision about it. He just found that he didn't need the bottle anymore. He had something to care for, someone who depended on him. That was enough. Kira grew stronger every day. Her scales became brighter. Her eyes became sharper. She started breathing small flames when she was happy. Little puffs of blue fire that danced in the air before fading. Danny learned that this was how draconids showed joy. Will your people come looking for you? Danny asked one night. Kira nodded slowly. Yes, the draconids always search for survivors. It may take time, but they will find me eventually. Our ships have sensors that can track our life signs across half the galaxy. Danny felt something twist in his chest. He had known this was temporary. He had known she would have to leave someday. But hearing it out loud made it real in a way he wasn't ready for. What happens then? He asked. Kira crawled into his lap, something she had started doing when she wanted comfort. Danny had resisted at first, uncomfortable with the closeness. But he had given up fighting it. The little dragon had become part of his life, part of his heart, and he couldn't imagine the cabin without her. I will have to go back, she said. To my people, to whatever family I have left. I am a child of the diplomatic corps, and there are duties I must fulfill. I understand, Danny said. Even though his voice was tight, Kira looked up at him with those golden eyes that seemed to see right through him. You could come with me, she said softly, to the stars. My people would welcome you, the human who saved a draconid child. You would be honored among us. Danny was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his life here on Earth, the empty cabin, the lonely nights, the memories that haunted him. There was nothing holding him here, nothing except fear. Would they really want me? He asked, a broken soldier from a violent world? You are not broken, Kira said fiercely. You are healing, just like me. And yes, they would want you. You are brave and kind and good. Those things matter more than where you come from. Danny looked at the fire, at the dancing flames, at the shadows on the walls. He thought about the stars, all those distant suns he had looked at his whole life, wondering what was out there that now he knew. And one of them wanted him. "Let's focus on getting you healthy first," he said finally. "One day at a time." Kira smiled, and a small blue flame escaped her lips. "That is not a no." "No," Danny admitted. "That is not a no." She curled up against his chest, her scales warm from the fire she had eaten, her heart beating steady and strong. Danny held her close and watched the snow fall outside the window. For the first time in years, he was looking forward to tomorrow. 3 months after the crash, Kira removed her own splint. Her leg had healed perfectly, stronger than before. She ran around the cabin, testing her strength, leaping onto furniture and breathing fire in celebration. Danny watched her with a mix of pride and sadness. She was healthy now. She was whole. That meant her people would come soon. "Danny," Kira said, stopping in front of him. "I feel them. My people. They are close." Danny's heart clenched. "How close?" "A few days, maybe less." She climbed into his lap one more time and pressed her forehead against his, the way Draconids showed deep love. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For healing me. For being my family when I had no one." Danny wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. "Thank you for saving me," he whispered. "I didn't know I needed saving until you showed up." They stayed like that for a long time. The man and the dragon, holding on to each other as the world changed around them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The ship came on a Tuesday morning, descending through the clouds like something from a dream. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop, with no visible engines or windows. It moved in complete silence, gliding down through the snow-filled sky and landing in the clearing beyond. Danny's cabin. Danny stood on his porch with Kira perched on his shoulder, her claws gripping his jacket gently. They watched together as the ship settled onto the frozen ground, its surface reflecting the white world around it like a mirror. "This is it," Kira said quietly. "Yeah," Danny replied. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "This is it." A door appeared in the side of the ship, sliding open without a sound. Figures emerged, tall and elegant, walking on 4 legs like Kira, but much larger. Their scales caught the morning sunlight, shimmering with colors that had no names in any human language. They wore flowing robes of silver and gold, and they moved with the grace of creatures who had never known fear. There were 5 of them. 4 were guards, Danny guessed, based on the way they positioned themselves around the 5th. That one was different. Older, somehow, even though Danny couldn't say how he knew. There was wisdom in those ancient eyes, and sorrow, and something else that Danny couldn't quite name. The elder stopped at the edge of the clearing. The guards stayed close, their eyes watching Danny with suspicion. But the elder's gaze was fixed on Kira. "Little one," the elder said, and his voice was like thunder wrapped in velvet. "We have searched for you across 100 worlds. Your mother's ship was destroyed. We feared the worst." Kira climbed down from Danny's shoulder and walked toward the elder on all 4 legs. Her scales were bright and healthy, her stride strong and sure. She stopped a few feet away and bowed her head in respect. "Ambassador Rin," she said. "I survived because of this human. His name is Danny Kowalski. He found me dying in the snow, and he saved my life. He healed my wounds and opened his home. He is the reason I am standing before you today." Ambassador Rin's ancient eyes moved from Kira to Danny. The guards shifted uneasily, their hands moving toward weapons that Danny couldn't see but could definitely sense. A human. A member of the violent species that the Draconids had debated contacting for decades. A creature from a world that still killed its own kind over differences in skin color and imaginary lines on a map. "Human," Rin said slowly. Your species is young and dangerous. Many in the galaxy fear what you might become. We have watched you for a long time, wondering if you would destroy yourselves before you ever reach the stars." He paused, studying Danny with those timeless eyes. "Why did you help this child when others of your kind would not?" Danny thought about all the reasons he could give. He could talk about his training as a medic, his instinct to save lives. He could talk about his own loneliness, his need for connection. He could talk about hope and redemption and second chances. But in the end, the truth was simpler than any of that. "Because she needed help," Danny said. "That's reason enough." The silence that followed was heavy. The guards exchanged glances. Kira held her breath. The snow fell softly around them, covering everything in white. Then Ambassador Rin did something unexpected. He lowered his great head, bending his long neck until his snout nearly touched the ground. It was a bow, Danny realized. A deep, profound bow of respect. "The galaxy has long debated humanity's place among the stars," Rin said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your species is chaotic and unpredictable. You wage wars over resources you do not need. You hate each other for reasons that make no sense. Many of my people believe you are too dangerous to ever be trusted." He raised his head and met Danny's eyes directly. "But I see now what your kind is capable of when you choose compassion over fear. This child came to your world cold and injured and alone. She knocked on door after door, seeking help, seeking kindness. And door after door was closed in her face." Rin's voice grew stronger, filling the clearing like a song. "But you, Danny Kowalski, opened your door. You saw a stranger, a creature unlike anything you had ever seen, and you chose to help. You did not ask what she was or where she came from. You did not ask what you would gain by saving her. You simply saw a child in need, and you acted." He stepped forward, closing the distance between them until he stood directly before Danny. Up close, the ambassador was even more impressive, his scales shifting through colors that seemed to glow from within. "You opened your door," Rin said softly. "And in doing so, you opened your soul. This is not a small thing, Danny Kowalski. This is everything. This is what separates the monsters from the heroes. This is what proves that your species is worthy of the stars." Danny felt tears on his cheeks, and he didn't try to hide them. He had spent so long feeling worthless, feeling broken, feeling like a man who had nothing left to give. And now this ancient being from another world was telling him that the simplest act of kindness he had ever done was the most important thing he had ever done. Kira ran back to him and wrapped her wings around his legs. "Come with us," she said, looking up at him with those golden eyes that had become the center of his universe. "Please, Danny, come with us to the stars." Danny looked at the ship, at the ambassador, at the world beyond the clearing where humans lived their small, complicated lives. Then he looked down at Kira, the little dragon who had crashed into his life and changed everything. "Okay," he said. "I'll come." The word spread across the galaxy like fire. A Draconid child had crashed on Earth, the dangerous world, the unpredictable world, the world that everyone feared. She had been turned away again and again, rejected by creature after creature dot, until one human refused to let fear win. The story was told in diplomatic halls and trading posts, in schools and temples, in ships traveling between stars. The story of Danny Kowalski, the broken soldier who opened his door to a stranger and changed the course of history. Humanity did not earn its place among the stars through conquest or technology or threats. They earned it through a single act of kindness on a cold winter night. They earned it because one man looked at something strange and scary and different, and instead of running away, he reached out his hands and said, "Let me help." That was what made humans special, the galaxy learned. Not their weapons or their violence or their endless capacity for destruction, but their stubborn, irrational, beautiful insistence on saving what could be saved. Their ability to look at the universe and see not enemies, but friends they hadn't met yet. Danny stood on the observation deck of the Draconid ship as it rose above Earth's atmosphere. Kira was beside him, her claws gripping his hand, her scales reflecting the stars. Below them, the blue planet grew smaller and smaller, until it was just another point of light in an ocean of darkness. "Are you scared?" Kira asked. Danny smiled. The same smile that had felt so strange 3 months ago and now felt like the most natural thing in the world. "No," he said. "I'm not scared. I'm home." They flew into the stars together, the man and the dragon, leaving behind a world that had almost destroyed them both. They carried with them a message that would echo through the ages, a truth that even the oldest and wisest beings in the galaxy had forgotten. Kindness is never wasted. Compassion is never weak. And sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who simply open their doors. Humanity, the galaxy learned, was ready for the stars, not because they were powerful, but because they were good.